SNP spokesperson, Chris Stephens. Sorry, Chris.
Paisley, it's a pleasure to see you in the chair, and I noted that your honourable friend from Strangford also had self-discipline, which isn't always the case that my good friend makes. But I noticed your strict chairship, and thank you for calling me in this debate. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, Mr Paisley, and I want to thank my good friends, the honourable member for Weaver Vale, for opening the debate. And there was a number of things he said which resonated for me. In fact, I was getting some flashbacks when he was talking about the challenges in the private rented sector. I still remember to this day the exchange I had with the landlord associations at the DWP Select Committee, who told me that there was no such thing and there was no adverts that they put out that said no DSS, and then I managed to find one which said no DSS, full stop, small dogs considered, full stop. But I'm still waiting on an answer to the vital question with that exchange is, did the small dog have to provide proof of income in order to get a property? But it was again, colleagues raising, in these types of debates, Mr Paisley, and the work of the Select Committee system which ensured that that particular policy was put in the bin. And the honourable member for Weaver Vale talked at great length about the very real need for social housing. I will be touching on that. But not only is there a need for social housing, I think we also need to acknowledge the support that social housing providers provide to other tenants on a daily basis. And it's because they're having to provide those wraparound services. It's because of government policy in relation to a broken social security system. For example, the challenges people have in order to get pension credit or disability benefit, or find themselves having their universal credit, that they're having to get deductions at the very start of a universal credit claim, and all of those issues that social housing providers have to provide to support their tenants. And indeed, not only, we've talked at length, a number of colleagues, about the level of rent. With that, of course, comes the current day food prices, and food inflation being at 18.2%. And I want to thank Mr Paisley, and take this opportunity to thank the Linthouse Housing Association for providing the Linthouse Larder, along with Good Food Scotland and Feeding Britain, Southside Housing Association for opening up the Cardonald Larder, and the Wheatley Group, who've opened up the Three Hills Larder in Glasgow South West. And now these housing associations across Glasgow now have a vision to make sure that there's affordable food to their tenants right across the great city of Glasgow. And what's the benefit of that, Mr Paisley? Well, the calculations are that someone who uses an affordable larder saves £20 a week in their weekly shop if they use these facilities. Now, that goes a long way, I have to say, for tenants, not only to afford their rent, but to buy other things and to help them with this Tory self-made cost of living crisis. Now, Mr Paisley, I want to talk about the situation in Scotland. The Scottish Government is leading the way in the delivery of affordable housing across the UK. There's been delivered 115,558 affordable homes since 2007, over 81,000 of which were for social rent, and that includes 20,520 council homes. The Scottish Government is working intensively with social landlords to develop an agreement on below-inflation rent increase for the next financial year. The Scottish Government is committed to tackling disrepair in housing, which many colleagues have talked about, and driving a culture in which good maintenance is given a high priority. Social landlords in Scotland are already required by law to meet the tolerable standard, which forms part of the Scottish Housing Quality Standard. This requires the housing to be substantially free from rising or penetrating damp, and compliance is monitored annually by the Scottish Housing Regulator. However, one of the challenges that we face in Glasgow South West, of course, is that housing provision for asylum seekers does not often meet the Scottish Housing Quality Standard. And the Home Office have argued that there is no need for asylum accommodation to meet the Scottish Housing quality standard. I have to say, I do find that a disgrace, but I'm sure that Glasgow is not the only area that's an asylum dispersal area where we find that housing standards for those seeking sanctuary in the UK doesn't meet basic standards. And of course, I'll give way to the Honourable Gentleman.
Andy Slaughter.
Understandably, most of this debate has been about general needs housing. But with social housing, with asylum-seeking refugee housing, with housing for gypsies and travellers, these are especially neglected groups, and the government has an appalling record on each of those.
Stephen.
Well, I do agree that there's an appalling record here, and I'm sure the Honourable Gentleman will agree with me that it's the social housing providers who are who have allowed that their homes and accommodation is being let out to the Home Office to provide these standards, but there's far too much of it being let out to the private sector, and I hope to work with the Honourable Gentleman in holding the government to account on these areas. It's important, Mr Paisley, that the Scottish Government are committed to enabling disabled people to live independently in their own homes where possible. The Scottish Government want disabled people in Scotland to have a choice, dignity and freedom to access suitable homes, to enable them to participate as full and equal citizens. The Scottish Government have flexible grant funding arrangements ensuring that specialist housing provision identified by local authorities as a priority so that they can be supported. And the Scottish Accessible Home Standard will future-proof new homes, building in accessibility and adaptability from the start, ensuring that older and disabled people have an increased range of housing options and reducing the need to make costly changes to homes as their needs change. It's also important that steps are taken to strengthen rights for tenants and preventing homelessness. Tackling homelessness and ending rough sleeping is a priority for the Scottish Government. On top of the funding provided through the local government settlement, the Scottish Government providing a total of £100 million funding from their multi-year Ending Homelessness Together fund to transfer the homelessness system. But again, I would hope the government really look at the situation that affects people with no recourse to public funds. There are far too many people with no recourse to public funds who find themselves rough sleeping and at the risk of homelessness. And I hope the government look at that, because the clear view from the SNP, Mr Paisley, is that no one should be at risk of homelessness or destitution because of their immigration status. The UK Government should and must take urgent action, as other colleagues have said, to support struggling households by increasing the local housing allowance rates and scrapping poverty-inducing Tory policies, which no devolved administration should have to mitigate, but devolved administrations are having to mitigate because of that particular policy. So, Mr Paisley, I look forward to the Minister's answers, and I thank honourable members for participating in this debate. Thank you.